views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
For the first time in history, the Bronx is seeing an African American and a woman take on the role as Bronx Borough President. Borough President-elect Vanessa Gibson joins me for a discussion on this victory. So please stick around. This very special episode of In the District starts now. Hi, I'm your host, Kibin Alleyne, and welcome to In the District, a show where we sit down with elected officials from and around the Bronx. Today, we have a very special guest, so please join me in welcoming Bronx Borough President-elect Vanessa Gibson. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me today.
So BronxNet is proud that our programming is speaking with you on this scale since you've been announced as the Bronx Borough President-elect. We really appreciate your support over the years, which includes the renovation of the studio that we're in right now. You were able to get an exclusive tour, so can you tell us what you think about it?
It looks beautiful. It's modernized. It has the latest technology. You are incorporating a new wave of interns and young adults that are working in BronxNet, future media executives and engineers. And I think BronxNet and the long-time commitment and history in the Bronx speaks volumes to your commitment and the partnership you've always had with the Borough President's office. I fully intend to carry on as I now serve as the 14th Bronx Borough President.
Now, why is it important for you to support local organizations like BronxNet?
Local channels like BronxNet just remind Bronx residents that there are opportunities where they can see about news right in their own community, right in their own borough. They can see some people that they often know. A lot of the BronxNet reporters are led by young people. You have different variety of shows from clergy and faith leaders and non-for-profits, youth organizers, housing organizers. You have a wealth of different Bronxites that are using BronxNet as a tool of education to spread information, to promote opportunities, to share resources so that we can uplift families, we can educate our Bronxites so they can make better informed decisions.
Now, why did you find it important to invest time and support in our programs?
Because I believe in BronxNet. I believe in the value and the principles and all of the contributions that have been made by BronxNet over the years. During my time in the City Council, 8 years, my 4 years in the New York State Assembly, I've always enjoyed a relationship with BronxNet. I've been a guest on so many shows with Darren Jaime, with Gary Axelbank, with so many different hosts talking about criminal justice reform legislation, the Jerome rezoning that we passed back in 2017. We've talked about our platform as the council member. We've talked about our work as a candidate running for Bronx Borough President. We've been a part of so many candidate forums hosted by BronxNet, and I really know the work and the value and the significance that BronxNet brings to our great borough. So it's no mistaken my commitment, my dedication, not just as the outgoing council member, but as the newly elected Bronx Borough President, to make sure we continue to carry on that partnership with BronxNet.
Now, 5 months ago, BronxNet also covered primary election night.
Yes.
We'll now turn to a clip of you joining your supporters who spoke highly of your continued support and advocacy for the Bronx. Let's take a look.
New Yorkers came out and voted on Tuesday, a total of 940,000 voters. Now the counting begins for the city, including the borough's president race.
I vote for Vanessa because we definitely need a change.
Councilwoman Vanessa Gibson joined her supporters at Con Sofrito as Election Day votes came in. Bronxite Eve Hendricks is for Gibson as the next Bronx Borough President because she says Gibson is for the people of the Bronx.
I could feel the love and the energy that she has for her community, and I see what she does as a council member, and I can imagine as our next Borough President the amazing job that she will be doing.
We are part of history right now, or even like her story. Vanessa being able to be the first Black person to serve as Borough President, the first woman to serve as Borough President. This is such an important moment.
Gibson says she's overwhelmed by emotions and gratitude towards her supporters.
I am so high on emotions and really overwhelmed with all the love and support. Thankfully, I've had so much support, the team that's been out there. We ran a campaign on a message of Forward Together Bronx, on a record of accomplishments on the work we've done in the council, the investments we made in housing and parks and playgrounds and recreation and schools and education. And we wanted to make sure that residents across the Bronx saw what we did in the council district, and that would transcend to the entire borough.
Reporting for BronxNet, Ashley Tiffany.
So viewing that clip feels like we witnessed the beginning of your journey to Bronx Borough President, but I'm sure it started much earlier than that. How does it feel to know support from your borough was so strong since the beginning of your campaign?
It has been overwhelming. I've been flooded with so much love and support and prayers and encouragement since the primary day back in June when we were certified in July. And looking back at that clip of election night, it was just so profound. I was so overwhelmed. My family was with me, my friends, my supporters, my team, my government, my campaign team, and they worked. We all worked so hard on this campaign in the middle of a pandemic while we were still doing government work, giving out food and PPE and groceries and reminding residents they were not alone. We were campaigning about our work serving as the next Bronx Borough president. And it wasn't easy. Knowing that we would make history was something that we obviously kept and paid very close attention to, but it was also about the demonstrated track record of success. It was about my work in the city council over 8 years of investing millions of dollars in children, families, and seniors and veterans, our LGBT residents, and making sure that the entire borough saw our work and saw that we have the ability to not only carry on the legacy of the outgoing borough president, Ruben Diaz Jr., but making sure that we step into our own lane and we chart our own course as the next borough president and making history in doing so at the same time.
Now, you touched on it a little bit, but I want to know a little bit more about those challenges campaigning in the wake of a pandemic, because I'm sure it wasn't easy.
So first, it's hard to raise money. As a woman of color, as a candidate for any office, it's so hard for women to raise money. We are competing in a male-dominated field where many women are finding trouble raising money, and it's really tough to set yourself out and really compete with so many men at times. And so that was one challenge. And number two, the challenge is, encouraging people to vote. We know that the Bronx has one of the lowest voting records in the entire city of New York and the state. And so encouraging people to come out and vote in a Democratic primary, mobilizing young voters under 40, reminding them of the history of voting, the fact that ancestors died for the right to vote, and it's important for them to exercise their fundamental right to vote. So encouraging young people to be a part of our democracy by exercising their right to vote. And then also making sure that people know who the candidates are through various forums and candidate nights and, meet and greets and talking to people, knocking on doors and social media and digital and commercials and letting people know who you are, what stands out about you from all of your fellow opponents. And so we tried to do that in a very creative way. We tried to be very, democratic in the way we did things. So we targeted voters across the borough, whether you lived in the Northeast Bronx, whether you were a senior, a veteran. We knocked on thousands of doors. We did mailings. We talked to people. We did commercials. We tried to make sure that the message resonated throughout the entire borough. And obviously, we're grateful at the results because the residents did stand with us, our Forward Together Bronx campaign. And I'm so grateful they believed in us. They were encouraged by us. And I'm looking forward to leading the great borough as the next borough president.
So as you mentioned, despite those challenges, you officially made history as the first Black and female Bronx VP. Did you ever imagine you could be a part of the list of women, specifically Black women, to change the world of politics?
No, I never thought that I would be in this position. I didn't see this day. Even during the campaign, I had doubts that I could win because sometimes as women of color, we doubt ourselves and we need to be our biggest champions and our biggest supporters. And sometimes we need to see beyond our circumstance and realize that we are driven by God. And as a faith-based woman who knows my foundation is my faith, knowing that God was setting me up and he had this plan for me to ascend to the borough president's office. So sometimes we have to encourage each other. We have to stick together as women and women of color. And we have to know that we have more in common than whatever divides us. And being a role model, and in my circle, having incredible role models like the Attorney General, Letitia James, the District Attorney, Darcel Clark, and so many of my colleagues in government who I look up to, who have been big sisters and big brothers for me, who have planted seeds in me. I think about the late, great Aurelia Green, who gave me a start as an intern back in 2009 as a college student. Ruben Diaz Jr. being a great role model of what it means to be a leader of your borough. And so I have all these great examples right in person of encouraging messages and words of wisdom that really helped groom me to the woman you see before you and the public servant you see before you today. So while it hasn't been easy, I'm encouraged, I'm full of hope, I'm full of optimism, because I know that better, brighter days lie ahead for all of us in the Bronx.
Now, can you explain the importance of this win during the same time America saw a woman of color take on the highest position next to our president?
It's a new season. It's a new chapter of leadership, and people are stepping up like never before. Women are running for offices never designed for us. And we are not only shattering glass ceilings, but we are setting the tone for what it means to be an empowered woman of color that sets yourself and your mind to do something. Women can do any and everything we put our minds to. Just give us the opportunity. Open those doors for us, and guess what? Watch us work, and we will show you what we're all about. We are role models, and we are driven by a fundamental belief that we have a right to be elected officials. We have a right to have a seat at the table. Just like Shirley Chisholm said, if there's no seat at the table, you bring a folding chair. And I want to encourage all of our young ladies out there that may not see themselves as leaders, that you are driven, you are destined for success, you are ambitious, you are beautiful, you are valued in this world. Never let anyone determine who you are as a leader, but you determine who you are as the next leader. That's what this election means. It means hope. It means a better tomorrow. It means opportunities for young men and women across this borough, young men and women of color that have been denied opportunities, that have been told they can't do it because of where you live. We love our young people. We have to support our young people and love on them. So my election means so much to so many for so many reasons. And it's emotional because I think about all of those that have come before me, that have paved the way so that I could be where I am today. So I stand on their broad shoulders, knowing that their labor has gotten me to where I am today.
Thank you so much for that. I love seeing the passion that you have for that. Now, I want to know a little bit more about you prior to your political career. So can you tell us about your relationship to the Bronx before, the whole voting and politics scene that you started stepping in?
Sure. So as I mentioned, I started out as an intern when I was at the University at Albany, and I was able to get an internship for the late, great Aurelia Green, who was a longtime assembly member from District 77. And after my internship ended and I graduated from college, she gave me a job. I was a broke college graduate with college debt and no job, and she gave me an opportunity. And she took me by the hand at a time when I needed leadership, I needed guidance, I needed a mentor in my life. And Aurelia Green became that for me. And I encourage every young person to find a mentor, find someone who believes in you, who can nurture you and groom you and guide you so that you know where your place is in this society because you have something to give. I was raised in public schools. I went to elementary school in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. I went to middle school also in Bed-Stuy. And then I went to high school at Murray Bertram High School for business careers in Lower Manhattan. And so my entire life has been raised in the public school system by a single mother who is my queen today, 70 years young, and she is the #1 supporter in my life. Coming from a small family, Caribbean American heritage from Trinidad and Tobago, TNT, and my mom's family is from Virginia. I have a younger brother, my niece and nephew. I have a very small family, but I have a larger family of constituents in the Bronx that love me, that surround me, that pray for me, that encourage me, that empower me. And now I have the entire borough that I get to represent. So this is something that I have worked so hard for, and I feel like I've earned every single vote because I've talked to so many voters, and I know there are so many out there that while they support me, I know that there are many people that may not necessarily know the work I've done. And so I ask everyone in the Bronx to give me a chance. Let me show you what I'm about. Let me put my blueprint and my vision forth for the entire borough of the Bronx, for the residents and families that have invested so much in the Bronx, that never gave up on the Bronx, that saw the potential, saw the hope, saw the opportunity, and invested in this great borough. We are a borough full of culture, full of diversity, full of opportunity. We are a beautiful mosaic of God's love right here in God's country. And now I get to lead this great borough of 1.5 million people. And it's overwhelming, but I'm excited about this opportunity. And I know that I don't serve alone. I have a whole village that's called the Bronx that will now walk with me to Borough Hall.
So you mentioned that a little bit, but I'm going to go back and just talk about, the love and support that you received from another Bronx leader, the late and honorable Aurelia Green. I spoke with you earlier this year about the impact she had on your career and your life. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that? Because I love the way you, just speak about that in general.
Aurelia Green was my political mentor and she was my political mother. And I never knew that God would ever allow me to cross paths with a woman of such virtue and value and commitment and strength. And she was a God-fearing woman. She was an administrative pastor at her church. Her and her husband years ago started their church in their home. And then they built a church, the Bronx Christian Charismatic Prayer Fellowship Church. And I came to know her as an intern in 2009 while at the University at Albany. And she loved on me. She took a chance on me. And she really took me by the hand and never let me go. And what I loved about Aurelia was that she loved for me to learn. So she immersed me in the political scene. I represented her in session at committee hearings when she met with constituents. I was always there and she allowed me to learn. And as a leader, you always want your staff to learn. You don't want to stymie their growth, but you want to expand on their growth. And she allowed me to learn. And then when I moved to become her district office manager, she encouraged me to go back to school after I got my bachelor's degree. And while I was working for her full time in her district office in the Bronx, I enrolled at Baruch College and I went to CUNY and I did a 3-year MPA program in the School of Public Affairs. And I was the second student to graduate in the School of Public Affairs behind the former council speaker, Melissa Viverito. And we are just so proud. And I'm so proud to be a twofer, a SUNY and CUNY graduate. And Miss Green did that for me. And now as a leader, I learned how to lead with compassion and conviction and commitment. So I encourage all of my staff, many of whom are former interns, to go back to school. So all of my staff have their master's degree. They have their graduate degrees because you never want to stop a young person from learning. If they can learn from me, that means I've done my job because I've made them a better person for the next employer. Once they leave my office, they can serve someone else based on the work that they've learned from me.
Now, you said that relationship helped you become an assembly member. Can you just explain what inspired you to take on that role just outside of the relationship that you had with her?
So working for her, working behind the scenes and being the go-to person, I never designed or never planned to run for elected office. But what happened in 2009 was the former borough president, Adolfo Carrion Jr., was nominated for a position with President Barack Obama in D.C. And he did accept the position. He left the office of borough president, which created a vacancy in the office. And Ruben Diaz Jr. was a 13-year assembly member from the 85th District in the East Bronx in Soundview who decided to run for borough president. And when he ran for borough president, April 21st, 2009, he won the election. And no one knew that in his deputy, he would ask for Aurelia Green to serve. And they both left the assembly May 1st, and that created a vacancy for office of Bronx Borough President, for the assembly rather. And I at first wasn't sure that I would run for the New York State Assembly. I never wanted to be an elected official because I felt that elected officials were placed on pedestals. You had to know everything, and I wasn't perfect. I had flaws like everyone else. But Aurelia sat me down and said, I have taught you, I've groomed you, and I know that you're ready for this position. And I would never put more on you than I know that you could bear. And God has ordained you for this position. And I said, if she could have so much faith and confidence in me, how could I tell her no, that I didn't want to succeed her? And a lot of prayer, talking to my family, my mom and others, and I decided to run for the seat. I was also finishing my graduate degree at Baruch, and my college classmates were very excited, and my professors were excited, and I was able to do both. I graduated May 27th, 2009 with my master's, and the special election was June 2nd, and I was victorious in the special election. I was the Democratic nominee, and I won the special to become the assembly member for District 77.
Wow, that's amazing. That's like you accomplished so much. That's really
Truly,
cool.
truly God.
So one of your role models paved the way for you to become one for so many women and girls in our borough. How does it feel to be a role model for the next generation of women?
It's a great feeling, but it's also overwhelming because you don't want to disappoint people that are looking up to you. But you also know that you're human. We make mistakes. We're all flawed. But every day I try to be a better public servant. Every day I try to surround myself with people who can make me a better person. You know, if you know better, you do better. So I'm always about mobilizing and strategizing and engaging young people, being a listener and not always talking, but listening to people, engaging people so they know they have a real leader in their elected official, and making sure at the end of the day we do better. Elected officials get the brunt of all the criticism, you know, because some of us have left office in handcuffs and we're in jail and all the other things that we're accused of. And so I wanted to be different. I wanted to be a different elected official that showed the residents of my district better than I can tell them what it means to be a public servant, what it means to be called to serve for such a time as this. Definitely knowing this job is not a 9 to 5. It's not a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 where I clock out at 5 o'clock. We work 7 days a week around the clock and we're always available, being visible and engaging. 80% of this job is showing up and being visible to people. When they call you, you respond, and showing the residents of the borough that you care no matter who they are, no matter what they look like, what zip code, what language they speak, their nationality, their heritage. None of that matters. But you live in the Bronx, you have a right to democratic representation. And that's what I want to be. And so when I think about being a role model and little girls come up to me and they shout out my history, they say, you were born March 19, 1979, and you live here. And I'm like, wow, you've done your homework. And it makes me feel good when they say that I was a school project in their school. It makes me feel really good because I know that I'm doing good work and I want to continue to do that. And I never imagined being a role model, but it is a great feeling. And I want to continue to represent for all the girls and all the boys across the borough.
Now, I'm so excited to see what your future of leadership holds for the Bronx, and so are other Bronx sites. So we're going to take a look at 3 tweets celebrating your victory.
Okay.
So at Jeanette tweets, the Bronx has its first Black borough president, and it's Vanessa Gibson, a Black woman. Hashtag the Bronx, hashtag Vanessa Gibson. What are your thoughts on that?
It makes me feel good. People are very excited, and making history means that while I am the first, I shouldn't be the last. It means that little girls and little boys can look at themselves and see. They can look at me and see themselves. It means that we are changing the times, we're turning the tide, and we are creating a new atmosphere where young girls can look at leaders and see themselves. And that's what I truly wanted in my ascension to this position, in running for office. Yes, it was about making history, but it was more so about a new chapter of leadership. It's a season. We are all here for a season, a time, and a reason. And I want my season to be meaningful. I want it to have an impact. I want to make a difference for the time that I've been here. And through my time in the city council, the residents of District 16 that took a chance on me, that didn't know me back in 2013, but they voted for me. And I hope that I've made them proud. I hope that I have been visible. I showed up, I engaged them, and I delivered on all the things that we talked about at the beginning of our tenure. That's what I want to be as an elected official. I'm going to be successful. And when I see tweets like that, it just reminds me that it's a new day, it's a new season, and I'm really excited about this new chapter.
Now, our next tweet is from Twitter user Katura Kendrick, and she says, "We did that boogie down." What do you want to say to Katura?
Yes, we did. Yes, we can. Women lead. Black girls rock. I mean, women rock. I mean, so many hashtags that I can think of. And, you know, remember, this is the year of the female. This is the season when so many women have been elected, starting from the ascension of Kamala Harris as the vice president. I cried on the day of her inauguration when she raised her hand, because she raised her hand and took her oath of office for so many of us, Black and Latina women across the country, that have never seen a leader that looks like us in the White House. Like, do you know what that means for so many of us, for our ancestors that died for the right to vote? It means so much to me, and it makes me emotional because it means that we're here for a reason. And when I see again the tweets of just the accolades and the love and support, it reminds me that we're here for a reason and people are looking up to us. And so Black girls rock. This is the time of women. 31 females in the city council, the history of the entire city council, and we now finally have a majority led by women. The Bronx delegation, 9 members, 5 are women. I'm looking forward to working with this new wave of elected officials that I call my sisters.
Now, our last tweet is from Ron Jordan, who says, "Congratulations, Madam Borough President. Well-deserved victory. Hashtag Bronx Forward." Do you have any words for Ron Jordan?
Yes, thank you, Ron. Bronx Forward, together, we're moving. Together, we are going to invest in the Bronx. We're going to be creative and innovative in our approach. We are not going to think that one size fits all when it comes to dealing with areas around affordable housing, economic development, creating good jobs, building economic wealth and power in the Bronx, supporting our schools, our students, our educators, our families, our children, our veterans, our seniors, LGBTQIA residents, transgender residents, supporting housing, and making sure that we build a better Bronx for everyone. No matter where you live, you are entitled to safe streets, to good schools, to clean parks and clean streets. And working with Mayor-elect Eric Adams, we're going to be a critical partner working with Governor Kathy Hochul and all of my colleagues in government. I'm ready to get to work. No time to talk. We have a job to do. We have an assignment. We know the work that needs to be done. And now we just have to put our work in.
Now, how will stepping into this new position as BP strengthen the work that you've already done?
So it is a catalyst. So I think the work I've done as a city council member, knowing the city government process, knowing the budget process, the procurement process, knowing the legislative process, it gives me an advantage as the next Bronx Borough president to make sure that I work with the city council delegation. I know the process for bills to become law. I know the budget process when we start in January with the preliminary budget. I will be working with my colleagues on formulating what their priorities are for their districts, but making sure we put a blueprint forward for the entire borough of the Bronx. It's important to me to carry on the legacy of Ruben Diaz Jr. So it's important to make sure the Metro North stations are expanded, the ferry service is expanded, the Universal Hip Hop Museum, the Bronx Children's Museum, the renovations at Orchard Beach, Rodman's Neck, the work we're doing in the East Bronx, the South Bronx, West Farms, Bronx Point, so many projects that are already underway. It's important for me to not only carry them on, but see them to completion. But now I also have to set my own tone. I want to build more community centers for young people all over the Bronx because young people deserve a community center in their own neighborhood. I have to address the prevalence of gun violence, the saturation of illegal handguns in our borough. We are leading the city in crime, and it's not acceptable. People don't feel safe in the borough of the Bronx, and they should feel safe. I want to make sure we invest in our schools. We work with the consortium, all of our public schools, private schools, parochial schools, charter schools. I want to work with all of our educators and administrators to make sure that we invest in our children. Every child is gifted and talented. All they need is access and opportunity. We want to build up the next wave of young people. We want to reinstitute the Youth Council in the office of the Bronx Borough President. We want to institute participatory budgeting because we want the residents of the borough to be able to have a say in how we spend capital money that is taxpayer dollars. So we have a very ambitious agenda. We're going to get started on day one as we formulate our team, but I want the residents of the Bronx to know that better and brighter days are ahead, and I look forward to working with them as the 14th, number 14, Bronx Borough President.
All right, Vanessa. Well, President-elect Gibson, thank you so much. This win shows that the Bronx trusted you to be the one to lead them on a better path after experiencing so much loss and adversity. How and when will Bronxites see these changes?
So change takes time. I mean, obviously, we have to have a level of cooperation, understanding, and patience, and that's something we don't always do. But the new administration is coming in at City Hall. We have a new mayor, Eric Adams, a new comptroller, Brad Lander, public advocate, Jamani Williams. We have a new wave of city council members. We will have a new speaker of the city council. And so I asked the residents of the Bronx to give us time, because when we come in office, we have to determine our staff, our team. We have to formulate our blueprint and our vision, and we have to really implement it. We will be having our official inauguration in January 2022, where we will lay out our agenda. We will make announcements on our deputy borough president as well as our executive staff. But it's going to take some time. With any transition, there's always that period in which you have to allow time just to adjust. And so the next several weeks will be very telling. I ask everyone to be patient, but you will hear the announcements. BronxNet will be there to feature all of our announcements. So stay tuned, because great and good things are to come.
Borough President-elect Gibson, thank you so much for joining me to discuss this historic one.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
That's all for our show today. I'd like to thank you all for joining me for this very special episode of In the District with Bronx Borough President-elect Vanessa Gibson.